Hey, welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel. My name is Nick. This is a channel called Watchlist Roulette, a channel dedicated to cinema and the discussion of cinema. And today, I'm making my first video in a long time, and it's for good reason. We're going to be talking about the new Paul Thomas Anderson film, One Battle After Another. I'm sorry for hitting the table so many times, but this is an exciting one, at least for me. This is the 10th film of Paul Thomas Anderson. The 10th in a long and illustrious career. I'm going to start this video by telling you something. Paul Thomas Anderson is my favorite living filmmaker. So I think right off the hop, you might know why I'm excited to talk about this film, and you might have an idea of what I'm about to say to you. I have seen it twice now, and chances are in a couple of days I'll probably go see it a third time. So obviously, again, Paul Thomas Anderson, my favorite filmmaker. I've seen it twice, and I'm probably arranging to see it a third time. I think you know where this is going. Let's just start off talking about what this film is. This is the biggest budget of Paul Thomas Anderson's career. He is not a filmmaker known for making films on big budgets, nor is he very well known for making films that take place in films that are contemporary, films that take place in modern time. It has been over 20 years since Paul Thomas Anderson has made a film that takes place right here and now. I gotta think the last one was Punch Drunk Love with Adam Sandler in 2001, which, believe it or not, this film shares a lot in common with. Maybe more than any other film in his filmography, but at the same time, this is a film unlike anything PTA has ever made. The film starts out with an extended prologue of sorts, and we are diving into the backstory of this group of violent revolutionaries by the name of the French 75, and we're watching these characters go from revolutionary act to revolutionary act, whether that means disassembling the operation of a migration detention center, whether it means robbing a bank or blowing up a bank. We are kind of thrust into this world very quickly of a handful of characters, one played by Leonardo DiCaprio, who begins his journey as a character named Ghetto Pat, then named Bob Ferguson later on. Tiana Taylor plays his kind of partner in crime and romantic partner by the name of Perfidia Beverly Hills, and a host of other characters, another one played by Regina Hall named Deandra, and just a number of characters who are trying to spark revolution through acts of violent protest. And in the midst of all of this, they get tangled up with one-of-a-kind character by the name of Colonel Stephen J. Lockjaw, played by Sean Penn, who also kind of becomes tangled in the webs of Perfidia Beverly Hills, and there is some sort of romantic sexual tension there. He kind of takes the role of their nemesis, and amidst everything that happens in this prologue, Leonardo DiCaprio's character, 16 years later, is now named Bob Ferguson, trying to lay low, live a regular life, try to raise his daughter, who was conceived during that earlier time with the French 75. Now he is kind of out of the revolution life. I don't even know if I would say trying to live a normal life, because he's really not. He doesn't have a phone. His daughter doesn't have a phone. They live low in a cabin. They're trying to kind of be completely under the radar. He is still living within the grips of a paranoia that has plagued him for a long time. You live a life where you do so many dangerous things, you know that you have a target on your head wherever you go, and he's kind of just resorted to a life of drinking and smoking weed and watching TV. He has become a regular slacker in the vein of the dude from The Big Lebowski, or maybe even Joaquin Phoenix's Doc Sportello from Inherent Vice, another PTA film, which again, this shares a lot of DNA with. His daughter, Willa Ferguson, played by Chase Infinity in her first major film role, is, a young woman who is kind of a very assertive, very confident young woman, and she is kind of often at odds with Bob because she wants to live a normal life. She doesn't have a phone, but I'm sure she would want one. She wants to go out with friends, but he really can't let her go anywhere without alerting her to all the different dangers that are out there. This butting of heads often creates a little bit of a friction between the two characters. As much as they might love each other, there's definitely a conflict in terms of independence, for sure. And as much as Willa's character has a right to be frustrated with the overbearing, hostile paranoia of her father, Bob, Bob's fears soon become justified when his daughter one day goes missing, and he is now alerted by his former colleagues in the revolutionary group known as the French 75 that Colonel Stephen J. Lockjaw is on a war path, and he is back, and he has got Bob and his daughter Willa straight in his crosshairs. And this is Bob's character is a character who, again, has just, he even says in the film, he has fried his brains with alcohol and drugs, and he has just kind of become this total slacker and couch potato and nothing. And his greatest fear was that a man like Stephen Lockjaw would come back into his life and get revenge. And his greatest fear is coming true. And you get to watch Bob's character panic and run around and try to figure out what to do and how to find the answers and how to remember how to be a revolutionary again in the first place. And in the beginning of this film, you see him setting up elaborate explosives, and he's a character who is very knowledgeable about his craft. And everything that he learned from the anarchist cookbook or anything that he might have known in the past is completely gone. He has to remember how to do all of that. And on top of that, he has to do he has to be a good father, and he has to look out for his daughter, and he has to find her. But he is just not equipped to deal with a situation this chaotic, and the town that he lives in, called Backton Cross, is now pretty much the site of a full-on war. And you're gonna just watch this character go on this odyssey, along with other friends and colleagues that are going to help him in his journey. You know what? That's really all I can tell you. That is all I can tell you about this wild ride of a film. Now we're going to get into the feelings, the thoughts, where I am with this film. I love this film to the moon and back. This is an incredibly special film. I've gone through my adult life adoring every film made by Paul Thomas Anderson, and every one of them brings something different to the table. This is unlike anything he's ever made. It is so bizarre that, first of all, for a major studio like Warner Brothers to give him a budget of, I mean, there's ballpark numbers. It's somewhere around like 160, 170 million. That's a giant budget. And obviously a lot of that is going to the star power, like guys like Leonardo DiCaprio and Del Toro and Sean Penn. Benicio Del Toro's character, I didn't even mention in the synopsis, playing Sensei Sergio, maybe my personal favorite character of the film. It's really amazing to watch a filmmaker like PTA evolve and do something we've never seen him do. Every time I see a new Paul Thomas Anderson film, I specifically remember the feeling of walking out of a lot of the films of his that I've seen in a theatrical setting. I remember seeing Phantom Thread when it came out, and I was vibrating when I came out. I was beside myself. I just couldn't believe what I had seen. Licorice Pizza was the same way, and every single one of his films gives me that feeling of just being absolutely galvanized. But this one is truly another animal, because this is the most accessible film he's ever made. It is easily the most attractive to a mainstream audience that he's ever made. And yet, all of the DNA that we love from all of Paul Thomas Anderson's other films is still baked into it. He accomplishes this amazing tightrope walk of creating a film that is his most appealing to a mass audience, with the blockbuster nature of it all and the action sequences. It's an incredibly funny film. It is very heartfelt in a way that a lot of Paul Thomas Anderson films are never that heartfelt. This is the most accessible film he has ever made to a mass audience, to the point where when I was watching it, I really couldn't believe it. Sometimes I almost felt like it doesn't feel like it was made by him. But then the absurdity of the characters and the humor and this ability to juggle a cynicism and a hopefulness which we haven't seen in a long time from him. It's like, this is a film that feels like it was made for a big audience. It feels like it was made to be a blockbuster and a smash hit, but it still feels like that PTA from the smaller films that we know and love. And a good chunk of it, and they should study this. I've often have felt that films that have a hard time juggling being funny in a very dark way and trying to be very brooding and dramatic and intense, finding a way to create that balance is incredibly hard. I've seen a number of films, and I've seen a few recently, that just don't juggle those things very well, where it feels like there is a tonal imbalance. It could never feel that way with this film. If anything, the light and the dark, the comedic and the scary, find a way to elevate one another. It is truly incredible the way that he finds a way to to kind of thread the needle and make both of these things work in tandem. It's just amazing to watch. And the absurd nature of this film is often a reflection of this being a loose adaptation of a Thomas Pynchon novel. This is very, from what I've heard, I have not read Vineland. I have it on my shelf. I haven't read it yet. This is a very loose adaptation of Vineland, inspired by Vineland, but set in a modern era, because Vineland, I believe, was written in the 60s or maybe early 70s. And if you've ever read a Thomas Pynchon novel, this film feels like one. I read The Crying of Lot 49 earlier this year. I had my brains absolutely fried by it. And when I pair that with Paul Thomas Anderson's adaptation of Inherent Vice, you watch this film and you're like, yep, this is from that world. The types of characters, the absurd humor, especially pointed towards characters who are authoritarian fascists. There are characters in this film who are white supremacists. You are dealing with cult, secret societies, and just a film that is of a very bleak nature, but it finds ways to be so funny in a way where it's like, we really shouldn't be laughing at any of this. But there's just this overall like this feeling hovering above this film where it's like, look at how stupid all of these people are in this film. Like, even the most dangerous characters, even when you look at the villain, Colonel Stephen J. Lockjaw, this is a character that Sean Penn was able to make, you know, kind of terrifying. He has a very terrifying, very intimidating presence. But in his most intimate moments, when the guard is down, you really see a character who is quite pathetic and made to look quite dumb. This is a film all across the board, whether it be Paul Thomas Anderson from a directing and writing standpoint, or whether it be the performances by Leonardo DiCaprio or Sean Penn. They all find a way to balance the funny with the tragic and the heartfelt and the intense, and it's just incredible to watch how they weave all of these things beautifully together. So while this might not be a beat for beat adaptation of the Thomas Pynchon novel that this comes from, it is very clear, you know, even from somebody who hasn't read that book, that the spirit of Thomas Pynchon is well alive in this film. It feels completely cut from that cloth. Just a surreal, chaotic, absurd paranoia, just packed to the gills. That is what this film is, and I think Paul Thomas Anderson completely nailed what he was intending to do, which was to create a film that felt emblematic of Thomas Pynchon's wild storytelling. But it's not as confusing as a Thomas Pynchon novel. I think a lot of people, I remember when I read Crying of Lot 49, I was just like, my brain was all over the room. I couldn't make heads or tails of just about anything. But I loved the experience because it was just a style that was so unique. And when you watch Inherent Vice by Paul Thomas Anderson, that is a film that deliberately kind of leaves you in the lurch, kind of has you, you know, a fly on the wall on Doc Sportello's journey, trying to figure out what's going on. The whole point is to feel lost. The whole point is to be overwhelmed and paranoid by all of the things happening and not being able to understand what world you've dived into. That chaotic confusion is almost nowhere to be found in One Battle After Another. Another reason why this film is very much safe for a mainstream audience. It is easy to track. It is easy to follow. It is easy to understand the motives of each character. This is a streamlined version of a Pynchon-esque story. It's just fucking amazing how they did that, because you could easily make something too overstuffed and too overcomplicated and too bizarre for a mainstream audience to follow. But Paul Thomas Anderson finds a way to satisfy the best of both worlds. This is a film that can be a hit with so many people who are maybe not fans or don't even know who Paul Thomas Anderson is, but this is also something that appeals to the hardcore fans like myself. It fits right in with the rest of his filmography, but it also feels like something bigger that could hit with more people who do not usually watch his films. On to these performances. Leonardo DiCaprio, I mean, here's the thing. He's never been one of my personal favorites. I've always thought he was quite a good actor, but something with him is he's one of those actors, and I think I've said the same thing about a guy like Al Pacino on this channel before. It's tough for me to see the character and not see Leonardo DiCaprio. Same way I've talked about Pacino. But I love Pacino, and I love the performances that Leo turns in. I've just never thought of him as one of my personal favorites. But he has found a niche, and it's one that he keeps going back to. And I've heard a few people say they're kind of sick of it. I couldn't be you like. All I want is more of it. Is him playing a buffoon, him playing an idiot. He has cornered this niche. He has found it. We saw it in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Quentin Tarantino with the character of Rick Dalton. Like, he has tapped into something that he's really, really good at playing. And if you ask me if Leonardo DiCaprio, 10 years ago, if you asked me if Leonardo DiCaprio could play a character cut from the cloth of Jeff Bridges, the dude from The Big Lebowski, I wouldn't be able to see it. He plays that role perfectly. He plays that role perfectly. And the thing is that when he is not absolutely hilarious in this role, the more heartfelt, more intense moments of this film, where he's trying to figure out how to be a father, and the whole father-daughter relationship of this film is the crux of this film. It is the heart of this film. It is the one thing that matters the most. And he's not a guy. He's played a father before in films, but we've never, I don't think, seen him play the role of lost dad trying to figure out how to connect with a teenager, and to see him go from stoner who can't remember the passwords to his revolutionary code, somebody who can't even cook a meal for himself, who stays out too late at night at a bar and saying, I know how to drink and drive. You don't need to police me. And his daughter is putting him in his place. Watching the parts of his character who is so desperately wanting to be liked and to fit in with his daughter is something that he is so good at as well. It's one of the most three-dimensional performances I've ever seen from him. This is my favorite film he's ever been in. Teyana Taylor's character, who is the first 45 minutes of this film, is her film. She is not in this film as much as a number of the other main actors. I'm not going to explain anything about why that is, but the very beginning of the film, the first 45 minutes, is her film. And even when she is not on screen through the rest of the film, her presence, almost like a ghost, like a specter, is hovering around this film. You never do not feel her presence. And for the time that she is on screen, she is an absolute lightning rod. Everything about her character and how much of a loose cannon she is, and again, all of these characters have something in common. They have this high and low, and she is again a total firecracker, and very intense and very aggressive, and knows what she wants, and is this independent woman who is set on creating a revolution, but at the same time, she has her bouts of loneliness and not understanding her place in the world or within her family, and being at odds with her emotions over that. These are all such three-dimensional characters where the balance is found so beautifully. Her daughter, played by Chase Infinity, Willa Ferguson, holy shit. I mean, for a first performance from a young actress to go toe-to-toe with actors like Leonardo DiCaprio and Sean Penn, just played that role perfectly. And not just that, but knowing how to create this character in a way that she feels like a descendant of Perfidia Beverly Hills, who again is a very intense character. Seeing the half of her that comes from Perfidia, she creates that so perfectly, where it's like, yep, that is her daughter. It's so amazing how she kind of imitates the character of her mother and brings that to life, but also shares a side of her father. Regina Hall, who, has been a comedic actress for a majority of her career. I've seen her in a handful of dramatic films, and man, she is such a great dramatic actor. When you give her that type of role, I really want to see her in more dramatic stuff, and she's like this really awesome kind of motherly figure in the absence of Perfidia for Willa Ferguson's character. And she's such an interesting character that maybe was a little bit underdeveloped. Well, not underdeveloped, but I would have loved to see a little bit more of her in this film. But what you do get is a very quiet, reserved, but emotionally intense performance that, I mean, she's awesome. I just love to see more of Regina Hall in dramatic roles for sure. And then we get to I mean, there's a number of other supporting performances. Cat on the table. Cat on the table. Cat on the table. Benicio del Toro is so funny in this film. As Sensei Sergio, he runs this like dojo, and he is kind of, it is like a Batman and Robin scenario with him and Bob, and he is his great friend who is kind of living in this sanctuary city of Backton Cross and harboring a bunch of undocumented migrants. And he even says, like, I got a Harriet Tubman situation in my house, all heart, no cash. And he's just like this pillar of the community who is just out to help as many people as he can. And he is going to help Bob on this journey, whether that's giving him a place to charge his phone, a place to lay low, a way to get a gun, give him some Modelo's, some beers for the road. He is just like this sidekick who is perfectly going to go to the wall, ride or die with Bob. And he is just such a lovable, funny character who is a great source of inspiration for Bob when he thinks that he can no longer go it on his own or do this journey. He is often giving him the energy and the inspiration that he needs to go forward in this journey. We're going to move on to Sean Penn. Sean Penn playing Colonel Stephen J. Lockjaw. I can say this about a lot of characters in this film. These all have the power to live on as iconic figures in cinema. Stephen J. Lockjaw is instantly an iconic cinematic villain. And Sean, this might be one of the best performances of Sean Penn's career. Definitely one of my personal favorites. He can have such a terrifying presence and just such an intimidating presence as this character who is a racist, a white supremacist, a total dirtbag. And just like a lot of these characters who have a very tough exterior, there's something much more emotionally complicated underneath the surface, and he's like a very pathetic, very dumb man, not in control of his emotions whatsoever, very easily triggered, tough on the outside, what we would call a snowflake on the inside. And Sean Penn is absolutely fucking hilarious in this film when it comes to such a chaotic balancing act. And really, it really is such an amazing performance because it is scary enough where you can hear a pin drop in the most intense moments surrounding his character, but also in the funniest moments with his character, the entire theater erupted with laughter. And like, not just because what he's saying and what he's doing is funny, even the way he walks is funny. We're laughing at him because he's such a fool. He is such a fool, and it's just amazing because it really is a reflection on the real world that we live in. The scariest people in power doing these horrible things, at the end of the day, in our heart of hearts, we know that they're stupid. We know that they're stupid, and we know that what they're doing comes from stupidity. It comes from misunderstanding. It comes from fear. It comes from them being afraid. And Lockjaw is a total, like, he is the microcosm of that. Like, he is just like, that is what he is. He is evil in the form of stupidity and fear and low self-esteem. This three-dimensional character is just crafted absolutely perfectly by Sean Penn. A lot of people who have seen this film would say that he is a shoo-in to win an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. He is the front runner. I want to agree with that. There's another film that I might talk about on this channel soon that I've seen earlier than release. I saw it at a festival. There's another performance that I think he might be competing with, but it is very much a front runner for being an Oscar-winning performance. All of these performances are amazing, but his is wild. He is an absolute madman in this film. Beyond that, I think, I could talk about this film for an hour. I really could. The practical effects, the car crashes. There's a car chase sequence in this film that feels like something of an instant classic, like just an unforgettable sequence. And the way it's filmed and the way it's executed, the boldness and the excitement of this film and its action sequences, it doesn't come from them being the biggest and the most explosive action sequences. It comes from the creative execution on the part of Paul Thomas Anderson, knowing how to shoot it, knowing what it should look and feel like. How do you use Johnny Greenwood's score in tandem with all of these sequences? By the way, my opinion, the best score Johnny Greenwood's ever done on film. This is my favorite Johnny Greenwood score. It fits the feeling, the atmosphere of this film absolutely perfectly. Just this always lurking underneath the surface anxiety, kind of like John Brion's score from Punch Drunk Love. Something is always moving. Something is always making sound. There is always some vibration underneath very anxious action on screen, and it's just always lurking, and it's always there, and it's always creating tension, and it's always adding to the chaos, and it fits the film absolutely perfectly. I think it's the best score he's done with Paul Thomas Anderson, and the best score he's ever done in general, honestly. And where do you go from there? This is a film that's almost 3 hours, feels like an hour and a half. It's paced so well. It never stops moving. There is never a moment where you're ever looking around thinking about anything else. You were just completely sucked into the badness of it all. At the end of the day, the thing that makes this film feel so special, I can't remember what publication it was or what review it was that I was reading, but there was a quote in the review that I read that said that one battle after another feels like it was filmed a week ago. You could not have put it better. This is a film that Paul Thomas Anderson has been working on for 20 years. Writing it for 20 years, putting it off, working on another project, and now he's finally gotten to it. Every bit of it feels like it is speaking to the world that we are living in, specifically when you look at the current state of the United States of America, and you look at the current regime operating in the United States. I'm not going to call it an administration, that's too nice of a word. Again, the stupidity and the fear, and the anger and the hatred, and this is a film about, and I think that this is one of the most emotionally affecting films that Paul Thomas Anderson's ever made. Because for me, I don't have children, but I think one of the scariest things about being a parent in today's world is how do you teach your children about the world that they are about to inherit? When your generation, the world was passed down to the generation before you, your generation passes it down to the next. How do you prepare them? How do you prepare the younger generation for that? You try to save the world and fail as Bob's character and Perfidia and all these characters as revolutionaries. They admit that they tried to change the world and maybe failed. But, how do you teach your children about a world that is on fire? A world that is consumed by hate, division, war, greed, unjust law? How overbearing can you be in protecting them, as Bob is often overprotective of Willa? And how do you take comfort and trust in yourself that maybe they will figure it out? Maybe they will be able to take care of themselves. Maybe they will help be part of a bigger change. Really, at the end of the day, that's what this film is. It is a baton passing from one generation to another and saying, this world was a shit show when I inherited it. It's going to be a shit show when you inherit it. And when your children inherit it, that is the title in a nutshell. From here on out, it is one battle after another. And from the second you enter this world, it is going to be a fight. And if it's not one thing, it's another. And it's terrifying to raise the younger, shepherd the young generation into this world that is constantly getting crazier and crazier. How do you save them from that? Or how do they take care of themselves, and what are they going to do to initiate a change in the guard and try to find peace in it all? I think at the end of the day, the heart of this film is the father-daughter relationship. How do you save your kid from the world, and how are they going to save it going forward? It's an incredibly powerful, probably the most emotional Paul Thomas Anderson film has ever made me feel. As you can see, this is a film that I care about deeply. It is a very special film. It's my favorite film on the year, one of my favorite films of the last few years. I don't know where it slots into my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson films. I haven't really thought that far ahead, but it is, just when you think this guy has made his best films, like you look at the classics like There Will Be Blood and, Magnolia and Boogie Nights and so many, you're just like, does he have, how many more levels does this guy have? And he just keeps finding ways to elevate his craft, keeps finding ways to do new things. So many things in this film are things I've never seen before in a Paul Thomas Anderson film. The way it looks, it was shot in VistaVision. I saw it in IMAX on 70 millimeter. It looks absolutely beautiful. Stunning image. Man, oh man, if you can see this film in that format, in IMAX 70 millimeter, do it. Even if you have to go a little bit further, trust me, it's worth it. I've seen it twice now that way, and it looks absolutely stunning. I can only imagine what it would be like to see it in VistaVision, but there's like 4 places on the planet Earth that are playing it that way. Yeah, Paul Thomas Anderson, in my opinion, the greatest living, well, he's my favorite living filmmaker on the planet Earth. You know, I will follow this guy to the depths of hell, man. Just an incredible storyteller that just finds new ways to do his thing. The fact that he has not won an Oscar up until this point, absolutely bizarre. I would imagine that this is his coming out party. I have been putting together my Oscar predictions. I would put him down for Best Director. I've got this film #1 right now for Best Picture. I've got it for a number of technicals, including cinematography, score. So I really hope that this is his moment where the Academy finally wakes up and acknowledges one of the best filmmakers we have. And that's about it. All I'm going to tell you is, if you have not seen this film, or if you came to this review maybe looking for a push because you didn't know whether you wanted to see this film, do it. Go see this film. See it in the best possible format you can get it. If you can get it in IMAX, great. If you can get it in 70 millimeter on film, that's incredible. VistaVision's a whole nother conversation. Just do what you can to go to the theater to support this film. Everybody, the one thing with this film that is really messing with people's heads is the box office. Is it going to be a bomb? Is it going to be able to make back its gigantic budget? Is that going to affect its awards chances? Is that going to affect where it lives in the cinematic zeitgeist in 10, 20 years from now? Are we going to remember this film? We will be watching this film in 10 years from now, 20 years from now. It will be remembered well. I care about box office because, I want to see more of our best filmmakers being able to greenlight projects and secure budgets for films. I want to see more original films, just like anybody. For all the people who complain that we don't have any original films, that is what we want. That is what's going to have us come back to the theater. If you do not put your money where your mouth is and go see this film, then you have failed that concept entirely, and you do not know what you're talking about. Because this is it. These are the original films we've been longing for. These are the films that feel like modern classics that we wait to discover. If you've ever been begging for original films to come back to the big screen, here it is. Here's your moment. And we've had our originals this year with Weapons and Sinners, but horror has become the most profitable niche genre in Hollywood, other than the sequels and the comic book shit. So yeah, man, this is it. Hell yeah, absolutely love this film. Go see it if you haven't. I'm completely out of gas. Thank you for watching this video. If you're stuck around to the end, wow, that's incredible. Good for you. That clap is for you. If you like this video, you can hit the like button. I'm pretty sure that does something positive for the growth of this channel. If you want to subscribe, that'd be great. They're, going to get back into the habit of making videos. I've got a few up my sleeve that I'm thinking of working on, so a lot more coming down the pipe. And other than that, have yourself a good one. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you later.